Whew. Needed my phone so I could read the question. Hey guys, it's Evan. Just wanted to answer another Patreon question here. This was a message that got sent to me, and I felt like best way to answer it was via a video for everyone. So I'm gonna take a stab at that. So the question is from Dylan, and Dylan said, I have another question. I have a shoot coming up for a Lincoln dealership wanting to promote their new line of black label cars, and they want to make a more narrative approach as opposed to a car spinning in a white room. We're going to be highlighting what Black Label offers through a couple enjoying a night on the town. All this to say, I'm in a predicament. I have roughly $1,000 in the budget for gear rental, and I'm torn between going with the Ursa Mini 4.6K and the Red Scarlet-W. The Ursa would be cheaper and fit into the budget. The Red with a Ronin would be a few hundred past. That's not the end of the world. I wouldn't mind putting a couple hundred for my cut into a rental if it meant we got a better product. I either like or hate what I see from the Ursa, and the biggest concern I have is that it won't perform once the sun is going down, especially because this commercial will be a little more run and gun. Given that the lighting won't always be controlled, what would you recommend? Okay, so thoughts. First is, I think there's a bigger question to be had about the budget for the project and the details of the project, but that's outside the scope of the question, so I'm not going to get into that. So from a budget perspective for something like this, I would say that the difference between the Ursa Mini and the Scarlet is probably about a wash, and I don't know that it's something that you're really going to notice. Now, that being said, I haven't actually shot with the Ursa Mini much, but based on everything I see and hear from everyone, I would put it in a class very similar to the Scarlet-W. I don't think you're going to get a lot more low light out of the Scarlet-W. I don't think you're going to get a lot... You're not going to get a lot more out of the Scarlet-W in general that the Ursa Mini doesn't offer. So, if I were you, I would probably save the couple $100 and put it into controlling absolutely whatever you can on the shoot. So whether that means getting a few extra lights, an extra set of hands, getting a better location, anything like that, that's how you set yourself up to succeed in a shoot like this. And even a little extra time spent on pre-pro, something like that is the thing that's gonna probably make the difference between this spot being good and this spot being great. So you're automatically going to have a good camera. Like, if those are your options, your images should be good. So your next set of goals should be what are the things that could make this thing bad, and it's not going to be not having a high enough resolution image. It's not going to be, you know, anything other than poor planning or lack of control. And so using any extra money you have and putting that money into control is going to make a far bigger difference than your camera. So that might be a question of, even with the rest of the budget, what are we spending money on, and what are the things that are going to bite us in the butt, and maybe making the decision to, you know, cut a few things but give yourself more time so you have more control, you know, to just rethink things. Because especially when you don't have a big budget and you're shooting you know, that kind of shoot, which I feel pretty familiar with, that's not big budget but they want it to look good, it's based on a lot of like lifestyle stuff. A lot of it comes down to being in control and having control over locations and time of day, and having some small lights that you can use to help just add some depth to things, or even art direction, you know, depending on the exact content of your spot. So I would highly recommend that you save the money on the camera. And another thing you could do, honestly though, is you could take the money you're saving, rent the camera an extra day early and shoot some tests with it and really get a sense for what you're looking to do. You know, there's a lot of different stuff you could do in there, but I would definitely say that unless there's like a good reason that you're trying to make the jump, that I would probably go with the Ursa Mini. But if you're doing a lot of gimbal stuff, I'm not really sure exactly how that pans out on the Ursa Mini, because, you know, they have that sort of clunky side handle, so I guess it depends. But I would say that it's a great question, and I totally empathize with that feeling. But especially if you are getting hired, whether as a production company or as a cinematographer, to make this commercial look good, they're not going to call you back because of the difference between a Scarlet and a Ursa Mini. They're going to call you back because of a really solid story, because their brand goals were really clearly communicated, because they felt like they were involved in the process and got what they were spending their money on. and like the art direction was there and everything else. And so that's your first priority, and then getting the camera and lenses and everything else you want comes secondary to that, in my opinion. So I would highly recommend that. I mean, that is another option that, depending on the content of the piece, maybe it's worth saving some money on your camera rental and getting different lenses that are going to fit better, you know, whether that's faster lenses or funkier lenses or whatever it may be based on the process. Unfortunately, without a lot of specifics about the concept, I feel like it's hard for me to get into too much of that, but that would be my general rule of thumb, is that cameras are great, but once you have a good camera, then you have to sort of get everything else to be at least as good as the camera, and so that includes lighting, art direction, concept, whatever, and then you can get a better camera, and then you make sure everything else gets better, and so on and so forth. But if you have a super good camera and the rest of the idea isn't great, your project isn't going to be good. So hopefully that's helpful. If you have any follow-up on that, feel free to shoot me another message. If you're interested in asking questions like this, you can ask them to me on Patreon, patreon.com/eBourcier. You get access to tons of bonus content, podcasts, early breakdowns of shoots that I've done, hours and hours of content for usually a $10 a month donation. So you should check it out. You can pledge once, and if you don't like it, I will send you your money back. But yeah, check that out. Get in on all of this, and thank you guys for the questions, and I'll see you next time.